The hour of convening having arrived, all members will please take their seats. All members will report to the floor of the House and take their seats. The clerk will ring the bell. All members will report to the floor of the House. We're now going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 127th House District, Representative Brian Prince. Representative Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. It is an honor to introduce and share my pastor, Reverend Dr. Charles E. Goodman, Jr. Dr. Goodman serves as a senior pastor and teacher of the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia. But he doesn't serve alone. Please help me recognize the team that he's brought with him and that supports the church: Ms. Charlene Patterson, Ms. Joyce Freeman, Ms. Zebra Jefferson, and Mr. Kendrick Lamar. Also, one of our colleagues serves as one of his deacons, Representative Wayne Howard. Colleagues, it has been said that those that require a long introduction probably don't deserve them, and those that deserve a long introduction don't require one. Therefore, I'd like to thank the doorkeepers for placing Pastor Goodman's bio on your desk, so now I can get out of the way and let God use him. Hear ye him.
Good morning. Thank you again to our speaker and to all those who serve in this august body. To Representative Prince and Howard, thank you again for your service. And to all those who are representing us today in what is a wonderful day for us here at the Capitol, Augusta Day. I hope that you enjoy your hats, and we always represent 706 very well, and it is a joy and a privilege to be able to stand and share with you because you have important business to do. I also understand not only should the intro be brief, but my message should be brief as well. I'm grateful for the staff that has traveled with us, but I want to share today just simply something that hopefully will guide us as this body has come together, whatever demographic and constituents that you represent, you have a lot of responsibility. There was a text I want to lift up today found in Matthew chapter 12, verse 25. Reading from the Good News translation, and this is what it says. Jesus knew what they were thinking, so he said to them, any country that divides itself into groups which fight each other will not last very long. And any town or family that divides itself into groups which fight each other will fall apart. Simple thought to think for us today. I want to talk about this: keep it together. As we're in a very interesting time, not just nationally with a lot of things happening in politics, but also even within our state, this great state that all of us love, regardless of which banner you tend to lean to your side. But yet we understand that with trying times comes difficulties, and difficulties oftentimes can raise up disagreements. I want to submit for us today that just because there are disagreements does not mean there needs to be division. There is a way to disagree. There is a way to work through things. And yet we begin to understand that somehow in our land that we love, this place that has become a great place for us, for great memories, that somehow we have leaned, instead of for disagreements into restoration, we have leaned to disagreement into division. Jesus in our text today was facing that. There was a lot going on in his time as he was sharing and trying to bring about the kingdom of God. The Bible lets us know that the establishment was trying to put a fence, if you will, around his ministry and his message. And so they were trying to figure out what makes him so special. So others were pegging and said, well, he's doing this because he's working for the wrong team. He's doing this because he's working against himself, in essence, or maybe he's not as good as he should be. And that's why this text is so powerful, because it is a response that Jesus gives to them about the reality of division. He literally says to them, I hear your thoughts, but I want you to understand that we are really on the same team. Even the antagonists that Jesus had to flow against were people of the religious order. And he wanted them to know, in this simple little word, he said, any country that divides or is not with itself will not last long, and any town that is against itself will not stand. Those two thoughts are powerful. It simply says that division has these two destructive things, that it has no long tenure and it has no foundation. For us who share in this burden of leading, it's oftentimes hard to try to navigate that fine line. What I simply want to challenge you with today is, no matter how much we may disagree, and we will disagree, my prayer is that we will move not from disagreement to division, but disagreement to restoration. Because we are warned, according to the words of Jesus, that if we are spent in division, we will not last long, neither will we stand long. It is my prayer that our country, this state, this august body lasts long and stands strong. And that only happens when we are unified, even in the midst of disagreement. Let us pray. God, we thank you again for the opportunity to serve, and all of us here, regardless of our political agenda and our political party affiliation, we come with one honor, realizing that you are the one that leads us and guides us. So what we pray is that you continue to give strength and guidance to this body. We thank you for the leadership, and we thank you for all who are here representing their different places in this wonderful state called Georgia. And just as we've been challenged today, it is our prayer that in the midst of our policies, in the midst of us going back in together, we would ask God, help us, that no matter what we do, to keep it all together. We want to last long and stand strong. So be with us. That is the only way we can do this. Guide us and lead us in your way, and help us so that we can be a better state, a better country for the glory of God. This is our prayer. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. The chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct.
Chairman Hogan,
Yes, sir.
is that the official report you just gave us or one that you pulled out of your coat pocket?
Well, the official one has a way of disappearing, and as the journal gets larger and larger, today it took a long time to read the journal, and I'd like to see if maybe you could get maybe Representative Noah Williams to help me with this.
I'll take that under advisement.
Thank you.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, on the 59th, moves following be establishes the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Report of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 916 by Representative Beasley Teague of the 65th bill being titled an act to amend the official code of Georgia annotated so as to repeal the imposition of the death penalty.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 917 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Corbett of the 174th, Hitchens of the 161st, Scoggins of the 14th, and LaHood of the 175th. Bill being titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 4, Chapter 11 of Title 16 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the carrying and possession of firearms.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 918 by Representative Cooper, the 43rd, Knight of the 130th, Hatchett of the 150th, England of the 116th, Bradley the 67th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 6 of Chapter 4, Title 26 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to pharmacies.
Insurance.
House Bill 919 by Representative Hatchett of the 150th, Jaspers of the 11th, Burns the 159th, England the 116th, McCall the 33rd, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the imposition rate, computation, and exemptions from state income tax.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 920 by Representative Clark of the 98th bill being titled Act to amend Title 20 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to education.
Higher education.
House Bill 921 by Representative Bruce of the 61st, Bazemore of the 63rd, Jackson the 64th, and Bodie the 62nd. Bill being titled Act to amend an act to incorporate the city of South Fulton.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 922 by Representative Carper of the 4th, Ridley of the 6th, Tarvin of the 2nd. Bill being titled Act to revise and restate the law relating to the Whitfield County Board of Education.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 923 by Representative Corbett of the 174th. Bill being titled an act to amend an act to provide for the compensation of the Board of Education of Clinch County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 924 by Representative Rogers of the 10th and Irwin of the 28th. Bill being titled an act to amend an act to create a Board of Commissioners of Roads and Revenue for Habersham County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 925 by Representative Rogers of the 10th, Lot of the 122nd, Reeves of the 34th, and Laricchia of the 169th. Bill being titled Act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to sales and use tax.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 926 by Representative Rogers, the 10th lot of the 122nd, Laricchia of the 169th, Corbett of the 174th, Reeves of the 34th. Bill being titled Act to amend Code Section 12.839 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to waste management.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Bill 927 by Representative Parsons, the 44th, Cooper, the 43rd, Reeves, the 34th, Dollar, the 45th, Rutledge, the 109th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 9 of Title 12 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to air quality.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Bill 928 by Representative Wiedauer, the 119th, Williams, the 148th, Richard, the 97th, Barr, the 103rd, Silcox, the 52nd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 15 of Chapter 1 and Title 10, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the Fair Business Practice Act of 1975.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 929 by Representative Smith of the 133rd, Washburn of the 141st, Barr of the 103rd, Smith of the 70th, Dickey of the 140th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2, Chapter 8 of Title 12, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions relative to solid waste management.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Bill 930 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Taylor of the 173rd, Watson of the 172nd, Meeks of the 178th, and England of the 116th. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 33-125, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the Georgia Agribusiness and Rural Jobs Act.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 931 by Representative Bonner of the 72nd, Belton of the 112th, Turner of the 21st, Clark of the 147th, Newton of the 123rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 4536 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to veterans' licenses.
Motor Vehicles.
House Bill 932 by Representative Gaines, the 117th, Cooper, the 43rd, Jones, the 25th, Wiedauer, 119th, and Newton, the 123rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 14 and Chapter 35 of Title 43 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to professional corporations.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 933 by Representative Nix of the 69th, Smith, the 133rd, and Trammell, the 132nd. Bill be titled Act to amend and act to provide a homestead exemption from Troup County School District ad valorem taxes.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 934 by Representative Reeves, the 34th, Rogers, the 10th, Laricchia, the 169th, Lott, the 122nd, Oliver, the 82nd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, and Title 48. The official code of Georgia annotated relating to the imposition rate, computation, and exemptions from income taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 935 by Representative Estration of the 104th, Marin of the 96th, Barr of the 103rd, Parks of the 101st, Harrell of the 106th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend the act creating the Recorder's Court of Gwinnett County.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 936 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Ridley of the 6th, Powell of the 32nd, Pelton of the 112th, Perkle of the 155th. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 40 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to motor vehicles and traffic.
Motor Vehicles.
House Bill 937 by Representative Smith of the 133rd, McCall of the 33rd, Ridley of the 6th, Corbett of the 174th, Powell of the 32nd. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 80 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to buildings and housings.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 938 by Representative Allen of the 4th, 40th, Trammell, the 132nd, Dickerson, the 113th, Dreyer, the 59th, and Anulowitz, the 42nd. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 9 and Title 12 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to air quality.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Bill 939 by Representative Carson, the 46th, Knight of the 130th, Stevens, the 164th, Rutledge of the 109th, Wiedauer, the 119th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 7, Title 48 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the imposition rate, computation, and exemptions from state income taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 940 by Representative Kennard of the 102nd, Lopez Romero of the 99th, Clark of the 108th, McLeod of the 105th, Carter of the 92nd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education.
Education.
House Bill 941 by Representative Estration of the 104th, Hitchens of the 161st, Lumsden of the 12th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 5 of Title 16, Article 1 of Chapter 15 of Title 45, and Article 7 of Chapter 4 of Title 49 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to kidnapping, false imprisonment, and related offenses.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 942 by Representative Donahue the 30th, Hawkins the 27th, Dubnick of the 29th. Bill be titled an act to authorize the governing authority of the city of Flowery Branch to levy an excise tax.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 943 by Representative Donahue the 30th, Hawkins the 27th, Dubnick of the 29th. Bill be titled an act to authorize the governing authority of the city of Oakwood to levy an excise tax.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Resolution 1092 by Representative Green of the 151st, a resolution honoring the life of Mr. Chris Shannon and dedicating a road in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1093 by Representative Parsons, the 44th, Workheiser, the 157th, Hitchinson, the 61st, Nix, the 69th, Dickey, the 140th. A resolution creating the Joint Study Committee on Cybersecurity.
Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications.
House Resolution 1094 by Representative Green of the 151st, Perkle of the 155th, Donahue the 30th, Werkheiser the 157th, and Lumsden of the 12th. A resolution authorizing granting of non-exclusive easements.
State Properties.
House Resolution 1095 by Representative Green of the 151st, Taylor of the 173rd, and Earhart of the 36th. A resolution urging the Department of Education and the Department of Public Health to encourage all schools to participate in a school-located influenza vaccination program.
Health and Human Services.
House Resolution 1160 by Representative Buckner of the 137th, Bentley of the 139th, Jackson of the 128th, Pullen of the 131st, Moore of the 1st, and others. A resolution creating a House Study Committee on motor carrier inspections.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Resolution 1161 by Representative Wiedauer of the 119th, Gaines of the 117th. Resolution honoring the life of Mr. James Oscar Hardigree and dedicating a road in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1162 by Representative Allen of the 40th and Elowitz of the 42nd. A resolution urging the following commercial public facilities to have at least one gender-neutral adult.
Special Rules.
House Resolution 1163 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Scoggins the 14th, Kelly the 16th. A resolution recognizing the Georgia Supreme Court Justice Robert Benham and dedicating a bridge in his honor.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1164 by Representative McCall of the 33rd, Watson the 172nd, Dickey the 140th, Perkle the 155th, and Corbett of the 174th. A resolution encouraging the Department of Public Safety to be attentive to the needs of livestock.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Resolution 1165 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Scoggins the 14th, and Kelly the 16th. A resolution honoring the life of Sergeant Stanley Thomas Bradley and dedicating an intersection in his memory.
Transportation.
Unnumbered bill by Representative Dukes, the 154th, to be titled an act to amend an act changing the method of selecting the members of the Board of Education of Miller County.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Unnumbered House bill by Representative Dukes, the 154th, to be entitled an act to amend an act creating a Board of Commissioners in and for Miller County.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Senate Bill 295 by Senators Wilkinson of the 50th, Gooch of the 51st, Walker of the 20th, Mullis of the 53rd, and Cowsett of the 46th, and others. Will be titled an act to amend titles 15 and 48 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to courts and revenue and taxation.
Governmental Affairs.
That completes first readers.
House will be at order just a moment. I want to recognize on the floor of the House a former member of this body, now a member of the United States House of Representatives, Congressman Sanford Bishop. Give him a big hand. Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 895 by Representative Setzler of the 35th, a bill relating to motor vehicles and traffic. House Bill 896 by Representative Trammell of the 132nd, Lopez Romero of the 99th, Dreyer of the 59th, Moore of the 95th, and Clark of the 108th, a bill relating to education. House Bill 897 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Burns of the 159th, McCall of the 33rd, Corbett of the 174th, Rhodes of the 120th, and others, a bill relating to notice of timber harvesting operations. House Bill 898 by Representative Walensky of the 79th, Stevens of the 164th, Harrell of the 106th, Holcomb of the 81st, Abstraction of the 104th, and others, a bill relating to adoption of hearing policies and procedures and standards or exercise of zoning power. House Bill 899 by Representative Williams of the 145th, Scoggins of the 14th, Hatchett of the 150th, Bonner of the 72nd, Smith of the 133rd, and others, a bill relating to telephone solicitations and residential, mobile, or wireless subscribers. House Bill 900 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Ballinger of the 23rd, Holmes of the 129th, Dempsey of the 13th, and Richard of the 97th, a bill relating to special license plates. House Bill 901 by Representative Chokas of the 138th, Green of the 151st, Lumsden of the 12th, Wiedauer of the 119th, Smith of the 70th, a bill relating to general provisions regarding the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. House Bill 902 by Representative Dreyer of the 59th, Fry of the 118th, Wilson of the 80th, Holly of the 111th, and Bennett of the 94th, a bill relating to primaries and elections. House Bill 903 by Representative Dollar of the 45th, Barr of the 103rd, Montana of the 17th, Perkle of the 155th, and Douglas of the 78th, a bill relating to motor vehicles and traffic. House Bill 904 by Representative Petrie of the 166, a bill relating to assessment of expenses, exemption from liability, and liability for unpaid assessments. House Bill 905 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Ricky of the 169th, Dollar of the 45th, and Stevens of the 164th, a bill relating to motor vehicles and traffic. House Bill 906 by Representative Taylor of the 173rd, Green of the 151st, Stevens of the 164th, Williams of the 115th, LaHood of the 175th, and others, a bill relating to the Heritage Trust Program. House Bill 907 by Representative Saines of the 180th, Clark of the 147th, Bonner of the 72nd, Hitchens of the 161st, Prince of the 127th, and others, a bill relating to the War Veterans Home. House Bill 908 by Representative Smith of the 41st, Stovall of the 74th, Cantrell of the 22nd, Setzler of the 35th, and Glanton of the 75th, a bill relating to enrollment of students in school to which not originally assigned, procedure, annual notification, and exception. House Bill 909 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd and Harold of the 106th, a bill relating to crimes and offenses. House Bill 910 by Representative Mathiak of the 73rd, Barr of the 103rd, Taylor of the 173rd, Earhart of the 36th, Williams of the 145th, and others, a bill relating to health. House Bill 911 by Representative Setzler of the 35th, Lott of the 122nd, Martin of the 49th, Caldwell of the 20th, Dollar of the 45th, a bill relating to sexual offenses. House Bill 912 by Representative Reeves of the 34th, Fleming of the 121st, Oliver of the 82nd, Wiedauer of the 119th, Wilson of the 80th, and others, a bill relating to programs of protection for children and youth. House Bill 913 by Representative Reeves of the 34th, Fleming of the 121st, Oliver of the 82nd, Wiedauer of the 119th, Wilson of the 80th, and others, a bill relating to domestic relations. House Bill 914 by Representative Clark of the 147th, Hitchens of the 161st, Williams of the 168th, Glanton of the 75th, Blackman of the 146th, and others, a bill relating to professions and businesses. House Bill 915 by Representative Singleton of the 71st, Harmon of the 2nd, Turner of the 21st, Pullen of the 131st, Cook of the 18th, and others, a bill relating to state government. Senate Bill 26 by Senator Ligon Jr. of the 3rd and Black of the 8th, the bill relating to service creditable toward retirement benefits under the Employees Retirement System of Georgia. Senate Bill 47 by Senator Black of the 8th, Rett of the 33rd, Jones 2nd of the 22nd, Harbison of the 15th, Robertson of the 29th, the bill relating to service creditable toward retirement benefits. Senate Bill 262 by Senator Harbison of the 15th and Robertson of the 29th, the bill relating to the Employees Retirement System of Georgia. Senate Bill 289 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a bill relating to ad valorem taxation of property. Through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Mark Newton, 123rd District, Chairman of the Committee on Access to Quality Health Care, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Access to Quality Health Care has had under consideration the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations. House Bill 888 to pass by committee substitute, respectfully submitted Mark Newton of the 123rd District, Chairman. Representative Don Parsons, the 44th District, Chairman of the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications has had under consideration the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations. House Bill 761, do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted Representative Don Parsons, the 44th District, Chairman. Representative Blackman, the 146th District, Chairman of the Committee on Governmental Affairs, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Governmental Affairs has had under consideration the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation. House Bill 757, do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted Representative Blackman of the 146th District, Chairman. Representative Jan Tankersley of the 160th District, Chairman on the Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals had under consideration the following bills of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 860 do pass by substitute. House Bill 869 do pass. House Bill 871 do pass. House Bill 872 do pass. House Bill 873 do pass. House Bill 874 do pass. House Bill 875 do pass. House Bill 876 do pass. House Bill 884 do pass. House Bill 889 do pass. House Bill 803 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted Representative Jan Tankersley of the 160th District, Chairman. Representative Bill Hitchens, the 161st District, Chairman of the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security has had under consideration the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 417 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 487 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted Representative Bill Hitchens, the 161st District, Chairman. Representative Benton of the 31st District, Chairman of the Committee on Retirement, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Retirement has had under consideration the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 390 do pass. House Bill 830 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Benton of the 31st District, Chairman. That completes the reports of standing committees.
Okay, we're going on now to the local calendar. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. One bill on the local calendar relates to homestead exemption and requires a recorded 2/3 roll call vote for passage. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 860 by substitute by Representative Williams, 145th, Putnam County. House Bill 869 by Representative Glanton of the 75th, Clayton County. House Bill 871 by Representative Holmes, the 129th, Jasper County. House Bill 872 by Representative Bernal of the 77th, Clayton County. House Bill 873 by Representative Holmes, 129th, Butts County. House Bill 874 by Representative Holmes, 129th, Butts County. House Bill 875 by Representative Nix, the 69th, Carroll County. House Bill 876 by Representative Rose, the 120th, Greene County. House Bill 884 by Representative Houston, the 170th, City of Tifton. House Bill 889 by Representative Morse, the 156th, Toombs County. House Bill 803 by substitute by Representative Green, the 151st, Early County.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bills. On the local calendar, the ayes are 162. The nays are 0. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. Okay, we're going on now to morning orders. Okay, here's the deal on morning orders. I'm going to allot 1 minute each, but if every member that's recognized takes a minute, we will get about 2/3 of the way through of those that have signed up. And we'll just have to carry those over till tomorrow. So implied in that is if you take less than a minute, I'm sure your colleagues would appreciate it. Chair will ask that you be at attention and remain seated during the morning orders unless you have business to attend to, and if so, please take it to the anterooms. Chair recognizes for a morning order Representative Patty Bentley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And colleagues, I ask that you please join in with me and others representing Fort Valley State University as I really don't have the courage to speak right now, so I'm going to yield to the chairman of the Foundation Board of Fort Valley, Representative Smyrie.
Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, I kind of stand here with a heavy heart. And anytime you lose somebody in your family, and I talked with our president last night, Dr. Paul Jones, and you never know the time, the hour, nor the day. And something as tragic as this. And I texted the speaker last night, informed him, and I thank Representative Bentley, and I thank all of you all who have mentioned it to me this morning. And the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. He leads me beside the still waters. He restored my soul. And yea, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I fear no evil, for the Lord thy God is with us. Shall we have a moment of silence? Amen. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, very much.
Chair recognizes Representative or Chairman Petrie for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, it's my honor today to recognize for African American History Month Justice Clarence Thomas, who was here with us last week, born in Pinpoint, raised just a few miles from my home in Chatham County, raised by his grandparents when his father abandoned his family, a tremendous example of the American dream, the second only African American ever appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, appointed by President H.W. Bush, now the longest serving member of the U.S. Supreme Court at 28 years. We're very proud of Justice Thomas back home in Savannah, and it was a great honor to have him here with us last week. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Frazier for a morning order.
Yes. As my delegation members, please join me here this morning. It's Augusta Day at the state capitol. We are so honored to have with us today our Chamber of Commerce's from 3 counties, Augusta, Burke County, and Columbia County. And if you all are in the gallery, would you please stand so that we can recognize you? There they are. Awesome. Augusta is so very honored to be also not just known for the Masters, but also known as the cybersecurity center for our region. And also, we are also known for our manufacturing technology. So today on your desk is your Master's hat. And I have been asked, where are your tickets? And I just want you all to get these hats. Look down, there's a flap in here somewhere. And one of you all will be the lucky winner of 2 Master tickets. And I do not believe you all are looking in those hats. So we would like to thank all the folks that came down from Augusta today. And thank you all as we celebrate
Ladies'
Augusta
time
Day
has
at the
way
state
expired.
capitol.
Might have given you more time if you'd have said tickets were in every cap, but Chair recognizes Chairman Belton for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Due to the Speaker's leadership and your leadership of passing 34 new laws, Georgia is now the most military-friendly state in the nation. But the Regents is also doing a great job of being military-friendly for our universities. They've actually worked out an agreement with us to help with the recruiters. I want to name off the best military-friendly state in the nation: Valdosta State University, Augusta State University, Columbus State University, ABAC, Fort Valley State University, Georgia Southwestern State University, University of West Georgia, University of North Georgia, and winning a bronze medal, the College of Coastal Georgia, also winning a bronze medal, the Georgia Southern University. Winning a silver medal is Kennesaw State University. The number 2 nation in the nation, University of Georgia, and the number 1 nation, Georgia State University. Congratulations.
Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is Doctor's Day, Physician Day at the Capitol, and the physicians and MAG have been sponsoring this day for many years. MAG represents over 8,400 doctors across our state that practice in every specialty of medicine. And like I said, there are 100 of them here today. I want to thank them for their service to our state and to say to you, now's your chance to ask them about any medical question that you might have, and you can catch them in the hall and see if you can get an answer. So thank you to the physicians that are here representing the Medical Association of Georgia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Bruce Williamson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the memory of Dr. Craig Taylor of Monroe, Georgia. Lee Hawkins was supposed to join me up here. Lee knew Craig for almost 40 years as well as I. Dr. Taylor lived a life of service. He was a brilliant doctor. He helped those in need regardless of their station in life. He was a public servant. He served on a city council, founded a Boy Scout troop, and unfortunately his wife, Kathy Taylor, was going to join us today, but she got stuck in the photo ops with the governor downstairs. But if you'd join me in a moment of silence for a man that made a difference in the lives of everyday Georgians, Dr. Craig Taylor. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Hughley for a morning order. Chair recognizes Representative Burchett for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to recognize a group from my home district, Lanier County Schools aspiring leaders. I'd ask them to stand in the gallery with us and recognize these educators that are pursuing leadership here in Georgia. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Chairman Darlene Taylor for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I honor Lieutenant Henry O. Flipper, born in Thomasville, Georgia in 1856. He was born into slavery, the eldest of 5 sons. He attended Atlanta University, where as a freshman, he was appointed to become a cadet at West Point, and in 1877, he became the first African American to graduate from the United States Military Academy. He earned a commission as a 2nd lieutenant and was assigned to the 10th Cavalry to one of 4 all-black Buffalo Soldier regiments. Lieutenant Flipper served with distinction during the Apache Wars and the Victorio Campaign, but was haunted by rumors alleging improprieties. He was eventually court-martialed and dismissed by the U.S. Army. After losing his commission, he worked throughout the Southwest and Latin America. He returned to Atlanta in 1931, and in 1940, he died of natural causes. In 1994, a U.S. military review found the conviction and punishment were unduly harsh and unjust, and recommended Flipper's dismissal be changed to a good conduct discharge. And on this day, February 19, 1999, 118 years after his conviction, Lieutenant Henry O. Flipper was pardoned. In his honor, an annual Henry O. Flipper Award has been granted to graduating cadets who exhibit leadership, self-discipline, and perseverance in the face of unusual difficulties. Throughout his life, Flipper was a prolific author, writing about scientific topics, the history of the Southwest, and his own experiences. May we all remember history, for it's a voyage through time where we can gain wisdom from those who came before us. Thank you for allowing me to share this moment in Black history. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Chairman Lynn Smith for a morning order. Chair recognizes Representative Terry Rogers for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if they've made their way into the gallery yet or not, but today is Habersham County Day at the Capitol. There they are. They're right there. And they're all here to tell you that Habersham County is alive, well, and open for business. And I made a mistake a couple of years ago and said it was the trout fishing capital of the world. I'll just say that along with Blue Ridge, it's one of the trout fishing capitals of the world. So if y'all would stand up and give them a welcome, please.
Chair recognizes Chairman Ballinger for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On your desk today, you have All About Kids. It's fact sheets about Georgia's children. Please read it. This is how from the facts that we develop policy that impacts our children here in Georgia. We have the saying, it's all about the children. Well, this book tells us all the facts that we need to know to craft good policy in the state of Georgia. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Carpenter for a morning order.
All right, guys. Thank you, Speaker. I'd like you to raise your hand if you have a restaurant in your district. Trying to see how many people are actually listening. So today is State Restaurant Day. Did you know that restaurants are the second largest private employer in the state of Georgia, with over 500,000 employees and over 19,000 locations? Today we're recognizing Doug Turnbush. He was the Georgia Independent Restaurateur of the Year. He's out of Marietta. He opened Seed Kitchen and Bar in 2011. He has since opened Stem Wine Bar and Oyster Bar. His menu reflects international flavors because he traveled and lived extensively all over the world, particularly in Bangkok. So his tastes are bold and exciting. As a chef, he said, as a chef, you have the greatest menu in the world, but if it doesn't mean a thing if you have poor quality ingredients. Making sure we have a commitment to local sourcing and local ingredients is his top priority. So with that, I would appreciate you very much coming down to the Freight Depot tonight at 5 p.m. and support all the restaurants in Georgia. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Heath Clark and Chairman Shaw Blackman for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are fortunate today to have three lovely ladies representing the city of Warner Robins: Olivia McMillan, Caitlin Tanner, and Rimley Heidi. And I don't know if they've made it yet here too, but to the gallery, but I just ask all of y'all to give them a great warm welcome to the People's House and congratulate them for representing the city of Warner Robins. Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes Representative Anulowicz for a morning order.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to everyone who is wearing red today. Today is, I wanted to recognize the members representing the 36,000 voices that are part of the Georgia Stomp Coalition. They're up there in the gallery. The Georgia Stomp Coalition was formed. It stands for Stop Tax on Menstrual Products. That's what the acronym is. And they're a statewide coalition, again, 36,000 women strong. They've had tremendous headway and are extremely grateful for the funding we were able to put in the 2019 budget for feminine hygiene products in our schools. We are very grateful for the fact that in 2019, the Department of Corrections went ahead and instituted a new policy that gives female incarcerated women access to menstrual products on an as-needed basis, and we're very happy that we've been able to collaborate with the Georgia Emergency Management Agency to improve the availability of menstrual products to Georgians following an emergency, like we had with Hurricane Michael. Thank you so much for being here today, women.
Chair recognizes Representative Walensky for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I firmly believe that the moral test of government is how the government treats children, elderly, sick, the needy, and the handicapped. Disability advocates from across the state are gathering today here at the Capitol in recognition of Now Comp Waiver Disability Day. This waiver supports families who have children with severe disabilities. There are currently around 7,000 on the waiting list to get the waiver, some waiting for 15 years. These groups are humbly asking today that we fund the Now Comp waiver. They ask we fund this program in full. One of those here today is my constituent, Evan Woody. Can you please stand? When Evan was a year and a half, he had a traumatic brain injury, and he is nonverbal and has a 3-year-old equivalency. Evan was here yesterday, and he's advocating again today. And while he is nonverbal, his silence and his presence is deafening, as he, with all who need this waiver, as they don't have the voice to do so. Let us give Evan a huge round of applause for this fight and strength, and let's fully fund these waivers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Stovall for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to first give thanks to Forest Park Mayor and City Council for finally passing the ordinance 4-1 to allow the reopening of the farm stand at Little Ones Learning Center in Forest Park. Little Ones Learning Center sold fruits and vegetables from their own garden and from local farmers. The next thing I want to bring attention to is a newly created Chattahoochee Flint Health District that will combine Clayton County with 12 other counties: Carroll, Hurd, Coweta, Fayette, Henry, Spalding, Butts, Troup, Meriwether, Pike, Lamar, and Upson. Our delegation met with the Commissioner of the Department of Public Health, and we are not in agreement with this combination of our counties with this new health district. We believe that it would decrease the services provided to our citizens as well as to those of the other county as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Elstration and Representative Jasmine Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. I come here to honor the memory of Misty Aguilar, a member of the Gwinnett community who worked for our Chamber of Commerce for over a decade. Misty passed away on February 15th, just 1 week after her 39th birthday.
We're incredibly saddened because Gwinnett County is a family, and the Gwinnett County Chamber works very closely with all of us. Misty Aguilar is a great leader in the community. We are saddened for her husband George, for her 2 young children, Bristol and Brody. I would ask you to please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Mabel Thomas. We have 3 or 4 left and 40 seconds total.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I want to say is thank you, Mr. Speaker, for finally putting me on the Appropriations Committee, because this week, 2 weeks, I have had an opportunity to really get an eagle-sized view of what's going on with the budget. And I was going to come and recommend that we have a lot of pushback, but during this time too, I had a quick opportunity to just catch a news article, and I want to thank you for pushing back, because there has been pushback and there has been some restoration of some funds. But I came today specifically to support the extension of pregnancy Medicaid for women up to 1 year postpartum, House Bill 693 by our colleague Representative Renita Shannon. But the thing that I think is important to know that the Georgia Maternal Mortality Review Committee, our own House Study Committee on Maternal Mortality, and the House Study Committee on Infant and Toddler Social and Emotional Health recommended extending access to health care coverage to 1 year postpartum to ensure that medical and behavioral health conditions can be managed.
Lady's time has expired.
And treated before becoming progressively severe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but we do need to put some money in the budget for Medicaid for women who are dying at childbirth. Thank you.
The allotted time for morning orders has ended. We have 3 members left over, and they will be added to tomorrow's morning order list. If you don't wish to be added, then see the messenger. Chair recognizes Representative Mary Margaret Oliver to introduce the Doctor of the Day.
I'm very pleased to have with us this morning Dr. James Short. He's a constituent and board certified family practice and urgent care. Thank you, Dr. Short, for your help today.
I'm glad to be here. Hopefully you won't need my services, but if you need them, you know where I am. Ask any questions. I'll be glad to get you an answer, or if I don't know it, I'll get it for you. Okay? Thank you.
House will continue to be in order. We're going to recognize some, first of all, we're going to recognize some former members. Former State Representative Jason Shaw on the floor. Representative Shaw, good to have you with us. Former State Representative Amy Carter making another visit over here. It's been a couple of weeks. We thought you were mad at us, so we're going on now to invite resolutions. The clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 995.
House Resolution 995 by Representative Jones of the 47th, Martin of the 49th, Loud of the 122nd, Robichaud of the 48th, Fleming of the 121st, and others. A resolution recognizing and commending Columbia County's River Ridge Elementary School's River Ridge 3 theater team and ILM Academy's ILM Smarts Middle School Visual Arts team as grand prize winners of the Augusta University's 2019 STEAMify competition, and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes the Speaker Pro Tem of the House, Speaker Pro Tem Jones, for an invite resolution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I am so honored and excited to welcome today educators, students from Columbia County and from Fulton County. They won a STEM-related problem-solving competition hosted by Augusta University. And we have the teachers here and the educators, and then we have the students in the gallery. And I just appreciate what Augusta University and what these educators did in giving up personal time to help students appreciate how exciting STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, math, and arts, can be in real world solving of problems, and hopefully inspire some of them to study this when they graduate. So the students that are here in the gallery are from River Ridge Elementary and from Ilm Academy. And so will you please join me in welcoming the educators, Augusta University, and the students. Are the students up there? Yes, thank you. And so joining me is Dawn Jeffers from River Ridge Elementary, Emily Harrison from River Ridge, Ravel Cox, the principal at River Ridge, and Heba Hassan from Ilm Academy. And I'm just going to welcome Dawn Jeffers to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. It is so great to be here, and it is such an honor to be honored here at the State House by all of you. We would love to thank Dr. Ashley Guess, who was the person who initiated this awesome STEAMify competition. The only STEAMify competition, or the only STEAM competition in the southeastern part of the United States. Over 700 students competed there. So we are honored to be with our students here, and our students did a theater project where they took a problem that the students had with technology, and they wrote a play about it and presented that play. So we are so happy to work with them, as they are excellent problem solvers and very creative thinkers. And lastly, we would love to thank the support of our principal. She supports all that we do to do the best job we can for our students. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1124.
House Resolution 1124 by Representatives Burchett of the 176th, Corbett of the 174th, Saints of the 180th, and Meeks of the 178th. A resolution recognizing and commending Spurgeon William Clark III, M.D., on his outstanding service as an ophthalmologist and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Representative Burchett for an invite resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Today it is my distinct honor to recognize an outstanding community leader. Today he came here thinking we were recognizing former Representative Amy Carter, so is this a surprise to him? Dr. Spurgeon William Clark is a third-generation ophthalmologist from Waycross, Georgia. Dr. Clark has a true servant spirit and has been serving his entire life. Admittedly, Dr. Clark's strong servant spirit was inspired by his father's advocating and leading in the community. Dr. Clark has given selflessly of his time and talents to better his community and his profession. Dr. Clark is a leader in this state, and today we would like to recognize and thank him. Please join me in applauding and welcoming Dr. Spurgeon William Clark III.
I'm very seldom shocked by just about anything I see, but this is such a pleasant surprise, and thank you so much. You know, as I've had the opportunity to work with so many of you and your predecessors over the years, the service that you give to our state is outstanding. We appreciate, as physicians, the opportunity to work with you to better our patients, your constituents' care, and I thank you so much for this recognition. And you guys, I owe you one, very seriously. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 899.
House Resolution 899 by Representative Donahue, the 30th, Barr the 103rd, Dubnik of the 29th, Hawkins the 27th, and Hatchett the 150th, and others. A resolution congratulating and commending the Georgia Beekeepers Association on the occasion of its 100th anniversary.
Chair recognizes Representative Donahue for an invite resolution. How you doing, man? Good to see you. Oh, it's amazing. God. Look here. I'm wearing it today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I come to you today thanking you again for 2 years ago we passed a bee tag, and this bee tag is already making a difference in our state. Georgia is the number 3 in the country in selling and growing bees. We stay between 8 and 10 in selling honey. But this group next to me are the people that really are responsible in growing and educating Georgians. So I look at this as I introduce each person, and I think this is 100-year anniversary. We have up here Miss Linda Tillman, president of GBA, Gina Gallucci, Vice President, Gail Dean, Dan Long, and we have a lady up here, Virginia Webb. Her honey has won the World Champion Honey Contest for 5 years. That's 5 times. That's pretty impressive honey. Look at that, and if you need some, I think Al needs to give this to the speaker. But I would like to introduce at this time Miss Linda Tillman, and thank you again, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate it.
You talk about this good honey and you don't bring me any?
Al took it. I'm going to get you some, though.
Thank you, everybody. We're very excited about the license plate and want to thank you first for passing it so that we can have it on the road. The license plate contributes to the education of beekeepers and to the education of the public about the bees. And we are very proud to support our bees because bees are crucial to the agricultural industry in Georgia. Bees pollinate soybeans, they pollinate cotton, they pollinate a lot of the fruits and vegetables that we eat. In addition, our beekeepers send bees to California to pollinate the almond. Our beekeepers in Georgia send the bees to do that. They send bees to Michigan to pollinate blueberries there. And they send bees all over the country. In addition to that, we sell bees, the actual bee the little buzzing insect, to beekeepers all over the country, and Georgia is one of the top states doing that as well. So we are thrilled to be celebrating our 100th anniversary and look forward to 100 more years. And thank you all for your support.
Mr. Speaker. Now, we would like to give this resolution to the beekeepers. Thank you again, and I always appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1065.
House Resolution 1065 by Representative Yurda of the 152nd, Green of the 151st, Perkel of the 155th, McCall of the 33rd, and Corbett of the 174th. A resolution commanding Sam X. White, the Southern Sky Center for Diverse Arts and Culture in its Village Community Gardens of Sylvester, Georgia, and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Representative Yerda for an invite resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, it's my great pleasure to recognize an individual that has made a great difference in our community. He has come up with something that was outstanding. About 15 years ago, about 5 years ago in 2015, Sam approached the city of Sylvester about a community garden, and we could not have imagined what that would have become. Sam has he's really become actually an artist by trade. He's a very talented individual. The community garden at this time has welcomed over 2,000 local, national, and international guests. It has actually become a model for other communities to replicate his garden. They provide food for the needy and provide fresh vegetables and produce for folks in our community that would not have access to that also. They have also implemented aeroponic growing towers, which are really, really cutting edge technology. This year, the garden is partnering with Worth County School System, and over 4,000 students will come to the garden for education on gardening and cultivating crops. The garden has proven to be an excellent gathering place for children, youth, and community members to work and learn together about cultivation and farming practices. And I would like to recognize some of the guests we have. Ag Commissioner Gary Black. Commissioner Black's a big fan of the community garden. He has been down there a number of times, and I think Sam has you on speed dial. We also have Stacy Barber. She's with Phoebe Worth Hospital. Phoebe Worth's a great partner with the community garden. We also have Janiyah Green. You can see the green coat. She's a 4-H club member, and actually Janiyah recently achieved the National Youth Action Award for her work at the garden, so that's something to be commended. And last but not least, Edna Garcia, Sam's wife, who allows him to do all this for the community. So let's give Sam a big hand.
Good afternoon. I want to thank, first of all, because I was told I only have 1 minute. First of all, I want to thank the love of my life, my beautiful wife, Etta Garcia. Thank you, baby, for, like Mr. Yerda said, giving me the opportunity and allowing me to work for my beautiful community of Sylvester, Georgia. We have a project called the Village Community Garden, and my farm manager is no other than Janaya Green. Let's give her a hand, please. Janaya Green is 16 years old. She's been with me ever since she was 11. I absolutely have to thank all of these beautiful people here from Worth County. Will you guys please stand? I want to recognize, thank you very much. They had to get up at 4 o'clock this morning to make it here, especially the students from Worth County. I want to thank Miss Tiffany Severe, Miss Pam, and also, what's the other? Hey, oh yeah, Miss Elwood, please, thank you. Miss Elwood, I want to thank you guys for all the work you're doing at the Village Community Garden. If you're ever down south, please visit the Village Community Garden. And Mr. Yerda, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
We are now going on to the rules calendar. Going on to the rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 758.
House Bill 758 by Representative Paulo, the 32nd and others, to be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 3 of Chapter 1 of Title 40, the official code of Georgia, annotated, relating to the Georgia Motor Carrier Act of 2012, so as to prohibit the consideration of the deployment of motor carrier safety improvements. This bill having referred to the Committee on Motor Vehicles, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Alan Powell to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen. I bring to you this morning HB 758. Very simple bill in its entirety, only does one thing, but it has a very important impact. This bill is brought to you by the Georgia Motor Carrier Association. And what this bill does is that because of experiences across the nation, a lot of these motor carriers today are a lot more concerned about safety, whether it's requiring their drivers to take safety courses or new safety courses, or to use certain new specialty safety equipment on their vehicles. And what they found is what's happening in some states is being discouraging to those independent companies is when they hire independent contractors to, under their contract, to drive for them under the flag of that particular company. Some of these independent contractors saying, well, if you want us to go to school or take these extra courses or whatever, or put this safety equipment on our vehicles while we're driving for your company and under the flag of your company, well, that makes me an employee. And this basically clarifies that the requirement of a motor carrier, that if any of their independent contractors are contracted to drive for them, that if they say that we want you to take these particular safety courses or use this type of safety equipment, that can't be used as a condition of employment. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what it does, and it's kind of simple. Be glad to stand for any questions, and if there are none, I'll be glad to yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
You have no questions. Gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes the minority leader of the House, Leader Trammell, to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, with all deference to the chairman who presented the bill, if you want to do something sneaky, you use a word that everybody feels good about. And in this case, the word is safety. We want to feel good about safety. We want to feel like that things are safe on the road. But what this bill is really about is whether truckers are classified as 1099 independent contractors or W-2 employees. And the basic test is pretty simple. If somebody can tell you and can control how you do your job, then you're an employee. If you have the right to do it any way you want to do it, you're a 1099 independent contractor. Now, if this bill was just about taking safety courses, that might be one thing. But I want to look at the definition in line 13 about starting in line 12, about what constitutes motor carrier safety improvement. And look at this list. Any device, equipment, software, technology. So when the rubber hits the road, what this is about is being able to tell a trucker that they have to install monitoring equipment, which could be used for a whole lot of things, including the route that you take, the hours that you're on the road, exactly how you do your job, where you are, looking in, supervision at all times. Does that sound like you've got the right to do whatever you want to do the way you want to do it? No. And if you look at line 14, it says intended and primarily used. Primarily used. But in that word choice, it means that what about the other uses that aren't the primary use? And I would submit to you that that's what's really going on here. Because if this was about safety, we don't need a bill about safety. You know, in 2015, the issue of misclassification was something that was taken up in a subcommittee study over across the hall in the Senate. And I want to just read a few pieces of the committee findings from, and you can pull it up, it's online, the final report of the Senate Subcommittee on Employee Misclassification from 2015. And part of their findings are sometimes referred to as the underground economy. Employee misclassification is the practice of designating workers as independent contractors when they should be treated as employees and afforded all the rights and benefits of an employee. And how does that intersect what we do? Well, when there is a misclassification issue, we lose out on a lot of taxes that we're supposed to be able to receive from companies who are violating the law and characterizing people as 1099 when they should be characterized as employees. And I want to read this part of the paragraph, of the next paragraph. Although the abuse is particularly prevalent in the construction and trucking industries,
due to the inherent danger of the work and high cost of providing workers' compensation coverage. Now, this isn't an indictment of all trucking companies. The reality is a lot of them do it the right way. But when we pass legislation that puts a thumb on the scale and says that courts cannot consider whether a company installs software or a piece of equipment to tell these truckers how they can do their jobs, that can't be considered in the determination of whether somebody is an independent contractor versus an employee, what we've done is we've put the thumb on the scale in favor of companies that are presently violating the law. And we're about to vote on a supplemental budget that's short. And in part, one of the reasons it's short is because we have people who are misclassifying workers. That's the stakes. Mr. Speaker, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You have some questions if you care to yield.
I will yield.
Chair recognizes Representative Ridley to your right for a question.
This gentleman yield. Got a question on this. You talk about the electronic devices that's in that. Is it not federal law that all truck drivers are required to use electronic logging device to calculate their time?
If the gentleman states.
Yes, sir, it does. That's what law does. All truck drivers have to use those where they're not driving overtime. It's a safety issue. That's what that's talking about in that bill. Does the gentleman further yield?
I will.
I think you were in the committee that had this, and I don't remember you voting no on it whenever we voted it out. Is that also correct?
The gentleman is right. This was in committee, and at the time I asked a question about what the purpose of the bill was. And reading the bill and reading what all is permitted as a motor carrier safety improvement, in my judgment, this bill is about tipping the scale in favor of being able to classify individuals who are really employees as 1099 independent contractors.
Well, I disagree with the gentleman. That's the reason they call them independent drivers. Thank you.
Gentleman, further yield.
I will.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Regulated Industries Committee, Chairman Powell, to your right for a question.
I will yield to my friend, Mr. Speaker. I will yield.
You yield for his question?
I do,
I
Mr.
think
Speaker.
he's trying to get a microphone that's operative. Chairman Powell probably don't need a microphone, but
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
I yield.
I listened to your, and I do appreciate your observations. I thought it was a little disingenuous to say sneaky when your next comment was that you read lines 12 and 13 that spelled out the definitions of these type of actions. But is it not true that, as you had spoke, that a 1099 is clearly an independent contractor and a W-2 is an employee? Is that not true?
A 1099 is an independent contractor. A W-2 employee is an employee.
Further yield.
I yield.
Is it not true that if a motor trucking company, if they sign a contract with a driver as an independent contractor, but if they ask that contractor as terms of that contract that they take specific enhanced safety, motor trucking safety courses, or if they put on the equipment that you referred to on lines 12 and 13, is that out of the ordinary of specifications for a contract?
It may be in contracts. Every contract is different, but it may be in existing contracts. But what this legislation does that changes that is to say that even if you have a contract that has onerous provisions in there that state that you have to put all kinds of equipment and there's all kinds of monitoring that the company can do of the driver, it cannot be considered in the determination of whether someone is an independent contractor versus a W-2 employee, and that's a change in the law. That's what this bill purports to do.
Will the gentleman further yield?
I will.
So as a distinguished attorney, and you know contracts probably a lot better than most of us do, or maybe not, but in the terms of a contract with an independent contractor, if the requirements is safety, and for the safety of not only the public, but for the safety of that vehicle and the carrier themselves, and if they require that, should that not be a term of the contract without being determined to be an employee?
Well, to the gentleman's question, whether or not there is a contract between a driver and a trucking company is a factor that can be considered into whether someone is a 1099 versus an employee, but it's not determinative of that. So you could have a contract, but you could still be an employee under the law. That's a determination when they go through the control test and they evaluate the present factors under the law, they make that determination. What this is saying is you can't consider anything in the contract as it pertains to this motor carrier safety improvement. What I'm saying is there's no reason why those factors shouldn't be considered.
Further yield.
I will.
All right, according to your definition, and as I look at lines 12 through 14, this specifies that motor carrier safety improvements, which is devices, equipment, software, technology, procedures, training, policies, programs, or operational practices intended to primarily be used to improve and facilitate compliance with traffic safety and motor carrier safety laws. That's generally the most important thing that any truck driver uses, whether they're a W-2 or a 1099. And if they sign a contract, which they would sign a contract to be a driver for these companies, are you saying that these basics of truck safety should not be considered as part of that contract, but in terms should be saying that they are an employee if that's so what they so wish?
Well, Mr. Speaker, to the gentleman's question, the parties are perfectly able to contract for whatever terms they desire. What I'm saying is the issue in this isn't really the fact that these terms exist in a contract. The issue is in the subpart B, that you can't consider those at all when determining whether someone is a 1099 contractor versus a W-2 employee. That's the part that doesn't make sense. And when we were talking about the definition being broad, it's literally so broad you could drive a truck through it.
Further inquiry. No pun intended of driving a truck through it. But if I might ask one last question though.
I'll yield one last time, Mr. Speaker.
So, you're saying that as an independent contractor that you freely sign an agreement stating that I'll take safety courses, or I'll learn the programs, or I'll use the devices or the equipment that makes my rig a better and a safer rig. And I've signed that contract freely of saying I'm an independent contractor, but if somewhere down the road it becomes convenient for me to hire an attorney to say, oh, well, I'm sorry, I didn't sign that contract of being a 1099, but I want to be an employee now and sue for benefits. So are you saying this is really what this is about?
Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is that this is an issue that the General Assembly does not need to put the thumb on the scale and say that we cannot consider this issue of motor carrier safety improvement as it's defined, which is a very broad definition, in whether someone is a 1099 independent contractor versus a W-2 employee. There is already in place law that makes this determination. What this bill is a preemption of the ability to consider relevant facts to that determination. And even though something may be intended or primarily used for facilitating traffic safety, it does not mean that it cannot also be used for determining the conditions of what is getting done and how it's getting done. And that is the fundamental question of 1099 versus W-2. Mr. Speaker, I think that this is a matter that each and every member will have to decide for himself or herself, and I would yield the well at the time.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 758 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Walensky rise?
Parliamentary
State your inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it not true that the concern is that 1099 employees can sign up in any way they choose? However, the treatment of them by the employer is the issue here, and the court should have every evidence available in order to make the decision on if they are an employee or a 1099?
I'm sure the gentleman believes his statement to be true. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 758. The ayes are 99, the nays are 68. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 765.
House Bill 765 by Representative Scoggins, the 14th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to courts so as to provide for an increase in the minimum compensation for chief magistrates. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Scoggins to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I bring to you House Bill 765 for your consideration. This bill will amend Title 15 relating to courts. Last year, the Senate and the House passed Senate Bill 171 that was also sponsored in the House by Representative Knight. This bill related to constitutional officers, and this bill pertains to the chief magistrate judges across the state. House Bill 765 mirrors Senate Bill 171 from last year, which would adjust the minimum compensation for the chief magistrate judges. On your desk, I passed out a bracket. This bracket in the first column would show the population that sets the salaries for the magistrate judges and constitutional officers. The second bracket is what the salary was in 2006. The middle or the third line is what the salary is today. And the line on the right is what the proposal is for the 5% raise. So I'll ask for your favorable consideration to the bill, and I will answer any questions that you may have.
Do you yield for questions?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Dubnik to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative on the back row.
I got you.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Two quick questions for you. One is this funded by the local municipalities or is this state funding?
It's funded by local money.
By local money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Second question, if you'll further yield.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that this applies to the chief magistrate judges.
Yes,
Does it
sir.
apply to the other magistrate judges?
The bill also makes reference to associate magistrate judges. Across the state, there are some probate judges that also serve as magistrate judges in the smaller counties. So this relates to all of the magistrate court judges.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr.
Yep.
Speaker.
You have no further questions.
I yield well. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 765 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 765. The ayes are 142, the nays are 25. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. House Bill 292 will be postponed until the next legislative day. The clerk will read the caption to House Bill 792.
House Bill 792 by Representative Ralston the 7th and others to be entitled an act to amend an act making and providing appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020, known as the General Appropriations Act. This bill having referred to the Committee on Appropriations. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the chair resolves the House into a committee of the whole House for the purpose of considering House Bill 792, the Supplemental Appropriations Bill. The chair appoints the gentleman from the 159th District, the Majority Leader of the House, Leader Burns, as chairman to preside over the committee of the whole House.
Good morning, colleagues. Have your attention. We have some very important business to take care of. This time, the chair will recognize the gentleman from the 116th House District, Representative England, to present the bill. Representative England.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. We are in the last minutes of morning and headed into the afternoon, and I realize that just a little bit after the action we take, everybody will be going to lunch. So we'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but at the same time, it is one of the most important things that we do, so we want to make sure that all your questions are answered and all the information that's deliverable can be delivered as well. As we start looking at the document today, you'll see two different packets on your desk. One is the actual bill, one is the tracking sheet, and what we'll be working from is the tracking sheet itself. You also have a packet of highlights for the amended FY 2020 budget on your desk as well. But first, I want to start off by thanking all of you for your time, your input, your effort, and all the work that you have put into pulling this budget together as we have worked through this over the last couple of weeks. Thank you to our speaker and our House leadership for listening to our need for taking a pause to take a deeper dive and look at things more in depth. Thank you to our subcommittee chairs and the subcommittee members and the committee members as a whole for the hours of selfless service. But especially thank you to these ladies and gentlemen sitting up here on the front row, our staff of the House Budget and Research Office. They stay here long after we're gone, many days, continuing to look at numbers and try to put different scenarios together, and they deserve a big hand from everybody. So let's do that. Thank y'all. Also, thank you to Governor Kemp, his Chief of Staff Tim Fleming, and Director Kelly Farr for the help that they were to us over the last week and a half on opening the lines of communications, not only with OPB, but with agency heads. And again, thank you to the agency heads, not only for their help in getting us information that we needed, but for the job that they and their agencies do every day of the year for our great state. You know, this budget is unusual in many ways from what we've had the good fortune of dealing with over the last several years. As you know, the governor had ordered a 4% reduction for the current fiscal year, exempting primarily enrollment-driven programs such as QBE, Medicaid, and many other things that are program-driven, and that went into effect in some cases in October. Naturally, new funding for positions or policy initiatives were the easiest things to withhold going into that scenario. However, these reductions are not enough to stay within the parameters of our collections, which have grown just slightly, or at about 1.5%, or about $203 million above where we were this time last year. We must maintain the pace we've seen from December and January in order to continue to meet where we thought we would be for the rest of the year. This slowing growth has resulted in a decrease in the revenue estimate from $27.5 billion to $27.3 billion. The gap would be even wider without the infusion of $255.7 million for the K-12 education mid-year adjustment. While the mid-year adjustment is housed in the Revenue Shortfall Reserve Program, or POT, it shouldn't be confused with the rainy day funds. And no rainy day funds are being used in this budget. So to make ends meet, state funds were reduced by about $159 million, or about -0.6% to match these slow revenue collections. And the governor's determination that the revenue estimate needs to be adjusted is the prudent thing to do. Although we found maybe the method and the messaging for executing it might have needed just a little bit of clarification. As I said, we have gotten that through this last couple of weeks of work. You see, it needs to be pointed out and be very clear that every year we comb this budget looking for efficiencies. And every year we dissolve programs that are inefficient and redirect those funds to other meaningful activities or more powerful policies. And in 2018, we gave $500 million of those dollars back to the hardworking Georgia taxpayers through a tax cut. Cuts are constant in good fiscal management. We don't just talk about them. They're not headline grabbers, not nearly as uplifting as, say, fully funding QBE, which we're doing again this year. But you know, the little things are the things that mattered. We actually cut last year about $4 million in property tax liability, is just one thing as an example of those things that we go in and look at and cut every year. For those of you that have not experienced a cut budget, you need to know that there are reductions. When there are reductions, that there are required, that we need to find the inefficiencies, but that is not the only place that we get or have to look. And that's why this process has been so intense this year. To suggest that the impact of $159 million reduction in state funds and 1,255 vacant positions being eliminated or held in this budget would not be felt is disingenuous. And it takes time to fully vet the long-term impacts of these reductions and the competing needs. In addition to the time it takes us to do our due diligence, timing of the bill's passage is also a decision-making factor in the amended budget's review. By the time the amended budget completes its legislative process and reaches the conference agreement and is then sent to the governor to sign, there's typically only 1/4 of the fiscal year left to enact those changes. With nearly all agencies braced for a 4% or greater reduction since October, some programming and positions cannot be resurrected in time to be effective or efficient. However, greater scrutiny will be given to a wider scope of adjustments in the FY21 budget that we'll be taking up starting this afternoon. And this budget is symbolic with the FY21 because nearly every one of the reductions is repeated in the next fiscal year budget. And it's incumbent for us to deliberate and be very practical about what can be reworked or restored. We're all working within the confines of a conservative revenue estimate established by our governor, and we will continue to fund priorities that directly respond to our constituents' needs and demands for us to have a solid return on their taxpayer dollars being invested in our state. Your subcommittee chairs and I look forward to working with the Senate and the governor for the successful execution of these shared funding priorities and our common goals. So if you would now take your tracking sheets and we will step through the changes from the governor's recommendation on the amended budget. So in Section 1, the Georgia Senate, there are no changes there. Section 2, the Georgia House of Representatives, we will be participating in the 4% reduction plan, so you'll see that reduction of almost $791,000 there. Section 3, the joint offices of the General Assembly. You'll see a couple of adjustments there. One of those is dealing with the Department of Administrative Services for insurance premiums. Just understand that that is present throughout the budget, numerous agencies, so we'll not call attention to that every time it shows. And you'll also, at 3.1.2, see an addition to for Georgia to host the 2020 National Black Caucus of State Legislators here in Georgia sometime this summer. Section 4, Department of Audits and Accounts. You'll see some true-up adjustments there at DOAS, and then a capture of some savings at 4.5.1 for a vacant position. Court of Appeals, Section 5. And what you'll find here throughout the judiciary, there are several reductions. And Chairman Welch and Courtney George and Brian Groom, our analyst team there, policy analyst team there, and budget analyst team there have done a great job of going through and combing through, just as we always do through the judicial agencies. As they front load their budget, the governor can't make an adjustment there, so it turns to the General Assembly to make those adjustments. And so you'll see that many things that they've asked for, we have said no to look forward to potentially doing in FY21. So those things in Section 5 of the Court of Appeals, including dealing and related to the statewide business court, are true-ups to meet the actual needs there. Judicial Council under Section 6, again, some true-ups for actual needs at 6.4.2 and 6.4.3. And I will note on the civil legal services, while the reduction is about $275,000 there remains $475,000 in the base for that program. Section 7, juvenile courts, again, just some true-ups on that. Section 8, the prosecuting attorneys. And Chairman Welch made this comment, I think it was yesterday morning. It seems like this has already been about a week and a half long in the last 2 days. But he did make a point. I would like to also give kudos to the prosecuting attorneys for coming to the table when it looked like that the public defenders were going to need to take a cut. The DAs came to the table and offered up some additional help to kind of restore the balance to the system. And Chairman Welch, over the years that I've served with him and the years that he's chaired this subcommittee, has been very good at making sure that we try to get as good a balance as we can between the prosecutors and the defenders. And again, that is something that you see here. Also, taking the savings from a position that was not filled and then adding back for a quarter-year funding for a juvenile court assistant district attorney there. Section 9, Superior Courts. Again, some adjustments and true-ups at 9.3.2 and 9.3.3. Supreme Court, you'll see one change there dealing with DOAS. As I mentioned earlier, those statewide changes. Section 11, State Accounting Office. One of the attached agencies there, the Georgia Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission, you'll see there restoration of funds for personal services at 11.5.2. Chairman Watson and his committee felt like that it was important to restore that operating money there and then agree to the cut at 11.5.3 on some contracts. Section 12, DOAS, no changes. Section 13, Department of Agriculture. Chairlady Houston and her committee went through her lots and lots of testimony on some of the effects that some of the proposed cuts to the Department of Ag would have, and you'll see at 13.2.3, they have restored effective April 1, and again, I point back to my comments originally. By the time the budget is signed by the governor, there's truly only going to be about 3 months effective time that an agency can spool up, and so that's why you'll see many of these restorations start on April 1. But they have restored funding for five food safety inspectors and 2 animal industry inspectors there at 13.2.3. 13.2.5, the funding to get the Georgia hemp program started from House Bill 213 from last year. Under marketing and promotion at 13.4.2, reducing the cut there to allow the department to still have the international trade representative on staff come April 1st. And at 13.4.3, restore funding for marketing materials and the Georgia Grown website development. Feel that it is important as we continue to pull out of the trough of Hurricane Michael, depressed commodity prices, and what we've seen with some of the trade wars going on, that it's important to continue to support our #1 industry in this state, and that being agriculture. Under attached agencies at 13.7.3, 4, and 5, you'll see some adjustments and true-ups there under the State Soil and Water Conservation Commission. Section 14, Banking and Finance, no changes there. Section 15, DBHDD, Behavioral Health. Chairlady Katie Dempsey and her team have done an outstanding job on listening to you and listening to the advocates and listening to those individuals that are impacted by these programs that DBHDD and others offer throughout our state, and have gone through meticulously and made some restorations. Again, keeping in mind that by the time everything's signed, we only have a short period of time for some of these things to be enacted. So you'll see a restoration of about $761,000 at 15.1.2. See a restoration of $500,000 or $500,000 at 15.2.2 as it relates to the Bobby Dodd Institute to continue to be able to serve their caseload. Moving on to section 15.4.5, you'll see a reduction in the cut there as it relates to training of our mental health workforce across the state. Many of the things that is happening, many of the programs that are being put in place by this training impact all of Georgia, but especially impact rural Georgia. She and her committee felt very, very passionate that these things needed to be kind of put back in place. You'll also see at 15.4.6 and 4.7 Additions there, $2.5 million on one line and $2.8 million on another, as it relates to direct services to individuals in our state that are suffering from different types of developmental disabilities or behavioral health issues. Moving down to 15.6.2, restoration of $750,000 there in that contract with the Marcus Autism Center. Unfortunately, that cut of $750,000 actually translates into a $1.5 million cut to Marcus because it is a one-to-one federal match, and that would effectively limit considerably the number of individuals that they would be able to see and serve over the remainder of the year. 1511.2, you'll see a slight reduction there on the one-time funds used for curriculum development. It will have absolutely no effect or impact on the program. The curriculum has been developed. We were just able to take a savings there from the development cost. Also at 1512.1, just the restoration of the Ag Career Summer Camp for youth with disabilities. And so we've put that back in place. Section 16, Department of Community Affairs. If you'll look under coordinated planning at 16.2.3, that position had been vacant since August 1st of 2019, so we've taken that savings. 16.3.3, you'll see there that we've made a restoration because as it panned out as through testimony and everyone, we found that there is actually no duplication of services and that should be restored. 16.6.1, Chair Lady Houston felt that at this point we didn't need to purchase the 3 vehicles that were being recommended there, so we've pulled that back. Under Special Housing Initiatives at 16.9.1, that contract had for the most part gone out the door, so it was necessary to restore that. 16.10.3, that position is listed as vacant, but it's not vacant. The gentleman is, the day we checked, was sitting there in his office doing his work, so but that position will be vacated as of July the 1st is our understanding. A slight restoration of a small cut under the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust at 16.12.1. And then the last change under DCA is 16.16, just noting that the One Georgia Authority is the mechanism or will be the one responsible for paying the Georgia assessment for the Appalachian Regional Commission assessment. That commission services about 37 counties in Georgia, and I wish I could tell you what the return on that investment is, but it is so scattered. There's so many things that is so much good that comes out of that, it would be hard to put a dollar value on what that value would be. Under DCH, Section 17, 17.4.2, you'll see the restoration of a cut of $463,000 to the Rural Health Systems Innovation Center. That program is one that this General Assembly started last year. It's housed at Mercer, and that entity is also charged with doing the hospital board training. As we discussed a couple of years ago, it was necessary that many of our small rural hospitals, we have incredible folks serving on the boards there, but many times they're just not fully aware of what their fiduciary responsibilities are. And the center has taken up that and has been doing that now most of last summer and into the fall, and has been very effective in that program. Moving on to still under DCH at 17.13, we have restored the cut that was proposed to the Mercer School of Medicine grant. We've also restored the cut that was proposed to the Morehouse School of Medicine grant at 17.4.1. Made a partial restoration at 17.5.1 on the loan repayment program, and then also a slight reduction in the cut at 17.15.2 that deals with malpractice insurance for those docs that are practicing one in a county that we started a couple of years ago as well. Then moving on to 17.16.1, dealing with the capitation payments to Emory University, Mercer, Morehouse, and PCOM, just a restoration of that capitation rate where we had set it in the budget as we voted last March and as we were leaving town. Section 18, Department of Community Supervision, there are no changes. Section 19, Department of Corrections, only a couple changes there. If you'll look at 19.5.5 and 19.5.6, it relates to some savings we've captured where they have not yet implemented their electronic health records program, and they'd encumbered some of those funds not being used yet for the project. So at this point, as we were cutting, we felt that it was necessary to go in and take a portion of those funds as well. 19.8.16, an adjustment there on the per item pricing in the commissaries, just telling them to go to a 5-cent per item increase starting April 1st. That still leaves those items that are for sale in the commissaries at more than a 30% less rate than what the actual retail value out on the street is. So it's still well under the market value of what those items would be out in the public. Section 20, Department of Defense, no changes. Section 21, Department of Driver Services, you'll see one change at 21.1.5 that correlates to 21.2.7, just moving which program that those cars are in. Chairman Watson and his committee had heard from the agency, and they felt that it'd be a little more flexible for them if they could have that within the administration program, so all of their employees would be available to use those vehicles. 21.2.3, restoring some of the cut on the security equipment that had been proposed, but it will allow camera systems for 7 additional locations to be installed as a safety issue for our individuals there on the front lines issuing driver's license and IDs. Under decal at section 22, at 22.3.5, just telling decal to utilize existing funds to do their portion of their partnership with the Georgia Family Connection Partnership there. Section 23, Economic Development. At 23.1.3, you'll see a slight reduction for a vacant position that's been open since the 1st of February. Under Global Commerce, you'll see a partial restoration of the cut there as it relates to marketing. As I said yesterday, it's always important to market your brand, and we feel very strongly about that. And you'll see that evident again under 23.9.3 under tourism to allow for some marketing to continue there. We have lessened that cut, but we also captured some savings from a vacant position at 23.9.4. Section 24, the Department of Education. You'll see a small add of $177,600 at 24.1.3 under Ag Education. We need to replace some bunk beds for the camping facilities at the FFA and FCCLA camps at Covington and at Camp John Hope down outside of Fort Valley. It has become a safety issue, and unfortunately the beds that are there are so old they are not retrofittable to allow for safety apparatus to be put on there, so we need to replace those beds. Moving on to 24.13, a capturing of a vacant position at 24.13.2. Under school nutrition at 24.14.2, we're saying no to the reduction in travel funds under school nutrition. They've been doing, our school nutrition folks in our counties and at DOE have been working great with the Department of Agriculture over the last couple of years on doing the farm-to-table programs in the schools, and we just don't want to do anything to tap the brakes on that. Moving on to 24.19. You know, it's kind of funny, once we adopt a budget in committee, then there are a lot of rumor mills that get started quite often about things that are either in the budget, not in the budget. They've heard about being in the budget, they've heard about not being in the budget, yada, yada, yada. Well, an interesting thing started popping up last night saying that we had not fully funded QBE in this budget, that the cuts or the adjustments that were made under QBE, under this section here, meant that we were pulling back from our commitment to fully fund QBE. But I stand here today to tell you that is not the case whatsoever. As you all have been here in previous years, you've seen as the budget process started, it's kind of a moving target. As data continues to come in, formulas continue to be run, you see the adjustment in these numbers. They kind of ebb and flow from time to time. But understand This budget fully funds QBE. Don't let anyone tell you any different. But I would also tell you again that by the time it comes back from the Senate, there may be another adjustment or two. But again, it's kind of like taking a snapshot in time today, and we'll take another snapshot in time when we get a little bit closer to the end. But understand what I'm telling you today, that these adjustments still fully fund QBE. And so that's what those numbers are. Under 24.19 are the adjustments and true-ups there. 24.20.2, you see a restoration of some of the cuts that were proposed for our RESAs that do an outstanding job across this state. 24.22.1, just a reduction in funds personal services to reflect a kind of a change and a reorg there. 24.23.2, our state schools. I think we all understand what the Schools for Deaf and Blind do for our children in our state, and we felt at this point that it was not the correct time to be making any reductions in their operating expenses there, since we basically are their school board as the General Assembly. We felt that if we're not making reductions in other instruction, we should not be making reductions there for their instruction either. Section 25, ERS, Employee Retirement System, no changes. Section 26, State Forestry Commission. You'll see some adjustments there as we've gone through and worked with Director Williams and his team and trying to make sure that the things we're doing do not take them away from the frontline duties that they have. You'll see some changes. You'll see some cuts that are a little bit deeper, but you'll also see some cuts that are not quite as deep because those show as true-ups. But also you'll see at 26.2.3 the restoration of some of the regular operating expenses for some of the needed maintenance that they have issues with. You'll also see some restoration at 26.3.3, also at 26.3.4, just saying to go on and make those equipment replacements because, as we know, as they're frontline in a firefighting situation, which today, this week, last week, they're not going to be more than likely, but as we all know, as late as last October, we were still in a drought in much of this state, so at any point in time, that can change very quickly. Moving on to Section 27, Office of the Governor. You'll see a reduction, but it's not an elimination of funds. It is a move of funds from 27.1.1 on the Governor's Emergency Fund, taking $2.5 million from there and moving it over to the Department of Law as it relates to some pending litigation. And an example of that would be the ongoing water wars with the state of Florida, and just saying that let's put the money where we know that it's going to go, just for greater transparency and easier tracking as we go through. Section 28, Department of Human Services. At 28.3.2, just the recognition of where some of the Children's Trust Fund funds are being used and how they're collected. At 28.4.3, a reduction in the cut on those vacant positions. But again, running about a 3-year average of 72 vacancies and just trying to true up to that actual number. 28.5.8, the restoration of $500,000 to the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children, which helps individuals, helps children that are in foster care situations, they're in the school system, be able to kind of maintain some similarity of normal life. Unfortunately, some of the cuts that were taken early on meant that MAC had to pull out of helping some of those kids about halfway through the semester. This will put them back in to help them finish out the school year. Then you'll see a reduction in kind of a true up at 28.5.11 for some vacancies. And again, true up for vacancies at 28.5.12. And then 28.5.13, it is looking now that it's going to be about July the 1st before that program will be ready to be up and running, so we've just pulled those funds back from the base. They will be in the base going forward, however. And at 28.7.5, a restoration of something that many of us in this room is very important to us, the Georgia MemoryNet program. As you notice, I've got my purple tie on today for Alzheimer's. Sorry. That program's important to me. It's important to most of you in this room. And I'm just telling you today that if you have not dealt with dementia or Alzheimer's yet, get ready. You will. And your family and those that are close to you. Georgia Memory Net has done an outstanding job of getting a program set up around the state in collaboration with Emory University to help people get early identification, dementia issues, and Alzheimer's issues, because we all know that early diagnosis is the only hope that many of these patients have to live any kind of a normal life for many years going forward. We still don't have a cure, but in talking with my friends at Emory, we're getting pretty close. We're getting incredibly close to having a cure. Moving on in section 28 at 28.10.4, just capturing some savings for some marketing funds that are not usable by the end of the year. 28.19.1, again, restoring our state's portion of our contribution to Family Connection. For every dollar in state funds we put into it, they leverage that to bring down about $4.10 for every dollar that we put into it, into our local communities in a collaboration effort that is second to none. Section 29, Department of Insurance. You'll see a slight savings at 29.3.4, just reflecting a change in some start dates there. Section 30, GBI. At 30.1.3, you'll see a true up there for vacancies. 30.2.3, again, a true up in the number there. Then at 30.3.2, you'll see where we're restating that these scientist and lab technician positions are to be filled, and to be filled ready to go April 1st. So you'll see a reduction in that cut. You'll also see an add at 30.3.3 for technicians and lab scientists at the Coastal Medical Examiner office down there, to get everything up and rolling there between 30.3.3 and 30.3.4. Under Regional Investigative Services, see a reduction in the cut just slightly there as it deals with a forensic auditor position. And then a true up of the actual cost at 30.4.5 for the gang task force that is being rolled out as we speak. Under 30.5 at Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, true up on 30.5.1 at 30.5.3 as it deals with juvenile justice incentive grants to local governments. Restored that, or brought that cut down to a 4% cut instead of a 5% cut. At 30.5.5, you'll see the restoration of funds for the supplemental grants to the local accountability courts. The subcommittee and most of you that I've talked to have felt that that was something very important for us to do, so we have done that as well. And then 30.5.6, some of the funds that are used for technical assistance provided by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities to these courts as well. It's an integral piece that is much needed. Under juvenile justice, moving down to 31.1.5, just a true up of numbers there as it relates to the youth competency beds. And then at 31.1.6, I want to hit the pause button here for just a second too. The Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children Center opened up yesterday. It's a great thing. This is something that DJJ and the state have been working on for quite a while to implement. The idea has been around for several years. Unfortunately, it's taken quite a bit of time to get this and bring this totally to fruition. So what you'll see there, we've taken some savings, but the savings we have taken only takes the 7 months from July 1, which was in the base, up until January 31st. So that program is fully funded for February 1st going forward to the end of the fiscal year, and it remains in the base for the next fiscal year as well. So it leaves about $168,000 in the base. And then when we get back to the FY21 budget, that sets there at about $403,000 then in base for that program. It's just one of those areas that if we were going through trying to make restorations like those to the accountability courts and others, that it was a place that we could capture a little bit of savings that doesn't hurt anyone and doesn't delay any type services either. Section 32, Department of Labor, no changes. Department of Law, 33.1.3, restoring a couple of the two critical attorney positions for the elections section that they have to make sure that they're up to speed and ready to go. Just a capture of some savings in the human trafficking unit from a hiring delay. And then you'll see at 33.1.5, the $2.5 million moved from the governor's emergency fund over for defense in the water wars and any other pending litigation. Section 34 under Department of Natural Resources. You know, these guys, we talk about state troopers, we talk about our police, sheriff deputies and others, but a lot of times our DNR law enforcement folks get a little bit overlooked. You know, they've got blue lights on their vehicles too. And I'll just tell you, somebody told me one time, don't be fooled. They can pull you over and give you a speeding ticket too. So just be mindful of that. They're probably not going to, but just be mindful that they can. So don't be acting the fool out there. But under 34.7.3, we have restored a reduction that was proposed in their operating expenses, dealing with some replacement equipment and travel. And again, under Parks and Recs, you'll see a couple of three changes there as it relates to the parks and recreation and historic sites. Understand that these are the things that we as Georgians get to enjoy. Those things that we get to go see and take our families to allow our kids to play, our grandkids to play, just to take a little bit of time and relaxation. But the other cool point about it is these are money makers for this state. This is economic development for this state. And in many places where the state parks are, or these activities are, those are big, big deals as it relates to economic development in rural Georgia and other parts of this state. So it's important that we continue to maintain those sites, and we continue to maintain them in a way that make them attractive to individuals wanting to come there. So you'll see some reduction of the cuts at 34.8.3 and 34.8.4. And then you'll see some one-time funds at 34.8.8. If y'all didn't know, and I knew, but I guess I had forgotten at one point, we actually own a tourist railroad here in the state of Georgia. It's called the Sam Short Line. Runs around Cordele and Americus and down and about that way. It's a state-owned rail line that we have rail banked through the years but continue to use as basically a rolling state park. Unfortunately, we have been a little short-sighted in providing some maintenance funds. They have quite a bit of deferred maintenance on that line, so it's become a safety issue. And so we're saying to put $250,000 in to help on some of that deferred maintenance. It has about 22,000 visitors down there every year and has about 25 employees. But the economic impact's about $2 million to that local area for that program and what it's doing there. Under wildlife resources, 34.10, you'll see again some restoration of funds for dealing with maintenance and operating. Again, the same issue on those things to keep these facilities safe and attractive for our families to go to. Section 35 under pardons and paroles, you'll see three items there that again are merely true-ups as it relates to those. Section 36, State Properties Commission, no changes. Section 37, coming to the public defenders, you'll see some reduction in the cut at 37.1.3, a true-up of a cut at 37.1.4, the elimination of a couple of cuts that were suggested dealing with training at 37.1.5 and 37.1.6. And then as it deals with our PDs at 37.2.3, we're saying no to freezing those vacant positions. And also at 37.2.4, we're saying no to reducing the contracted rates that are used for contract attorneys doing public defense work. They're already on a very low pay scale, and going in and making a reduction there would make it either unattainable for us to get attorneys to do that work and incredibly unattractive for anyone wishing to do that work as well. Section 38, Department of Public Health. See a partial restoration at 38.1.3 to the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia. This will allow for the continued telehealth portion of the mobile testing unit, as well as some additional training and educational materials, and allow for them to be able to continue to maintain some case management on quite a few individuals around the state suffering from that horrible disease. 38.3.3 under Department of Administration, You'll see a true up there, and you'll see that number reflected at 38.12.3 as it relates to the Fulton County Board of Health. Epidemiology, 38.5. We're saying no to the cut to the Georgia Poison Control Center. However, there is a contract, planning contract that could be captured there, so at 38.5.4, just reducing that contract, but we're saying no to reducing any services rendered through the Poison Control Center. 38.12.2, again, one of those things we heard from many of you about were the proposed reductions to the county boards of health. So what your committee has done is restored $2.6 million to those proposed cuts. And then you'll see at 38.12.3 the move that I mentioned previously dealing with Fulton County there. At 38.12.2, we basically restored it to what remains being a 3% cut instead of the original 5% proposed cut. Georgia Trauma Care Commission at 38.15. At 38.15.2, just a acknowledgement of the actual super speeder fees that are coming into the state there. It doesn't affect the bottom line, it's just the recognition of those dollars. Under public safety, section 39, 39.4.3 and 39.4.4, recognizing the unfortunate termination of 30 state troopers due to that scandal with the testing. So we were able to increase that reduction there and capture savings, and also capture some savings as it relates to the trooper schools and the attrition that happens through them as they go through the school. Under Firefighter Standards Training Council, you'll see just an adjustment there at 39.7.2 related to actual hire dates. And then at 39.7.4, the purchase of 2 vehicles that are extremely high mileage and have been kind of letting folks down on the side of the road. 39.8.3, just a true up there on the vacant position at 39.8.4. The restoration of the funds in the contract with Georgia Sheriff's Association and the police chiefs for the training that coordination that goes on there. And then under Office Highway Safety, it's kind of a clarification of use of funds at 39.10.3, and then the capturing of some vacant positions at 39.10.4. Public Service Commission, Section 40. PSC, PSC took quite a number of reductions during the recession, and we've, just as we have done through all of our state agencies, we have managed very tightly on allowing restoration of funds to many agencies, and PSC has been one of those that we've been very tight on allowing expansion of funds on. So when they were asked to participate in the 4% cuts, it became very problematic to the point that it would mean furlough days for many of their staff, including some of the public service commissioners themselves. And so what we've done there is said, you know, y'all have done a good job of managing your money through the years. We've kept you very lean, very tight, and understand that any further reductions at this point with all the work that you have going on as it relates to Vogel 3 and 4 and other things that are pending before them, that those cuts needed to be restored. Section 41, Board of Regents. I'll try to simplify this as best I can. Under Ag Experiment Station and Cooperative Extension Service, what Chairman Knight and his committee have done there are basically go back to the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences and ask them for their original 4% reduction plan, the 4% cut plan. And so what we've done there is go back in and restore those areas under those 2 programs back to what the actual agency submission was. Because if we were doing kind of the back of the envelope math, it was showing that these reductions were more like an 8% or 9% reduction to state funds, and it was unsustainable for those 2 entities. So that's what those numbers are there. Treating forestry, cooperative extension, and forestry research basically the same at 41.5 and 41.6. Then under Georgia Archives, taking a slight reduction, but not everything that they had offered up, not reducing funds for the operating expenses, but also under the maintenance contracts, just telling them to make sure they keep up the building, but if the grass needs to go 2 or 3 weeks without being mowed, then it just needs to go 2 or 3 weeks without being mowed. I know that's a simplification, but that's kind of what we're saying. Under the Cyber Center at 41.8, just a true up of some numbers there. Then moving on to Marine Resources Extension, you'll see a restoration to the 4% cut plan. At 41.13.1, not sure where wires got crossed there. Those reductions were not actually to the teaching program. That was actually the money that was going out the door for the medical residents. So we have said no to that reduction there. Again, staying true to what we've been saying throughout the budget as the importance that we place on medical education across this state. 41.14.5 under public libraries, restoring the per capita proposed reduction there, getting back to or maintaining the 35 cents per capita spending level there. 41.15.3, the restoration of the cut proposed for the Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center. And then a true up at 41.15.6 as it relates to the Film Academy based on a later hiring date. Under Skidaway, just a little bit of a true up there, but also trying to lessen the cuts again in those areas of experiment and outreach. And again, under Vet Med at 41.19 as well. Then under GPT at 41.23, just restoring some of the operating expense cuts there. They have had a boiler, that facility is built, I think, in the early 90s. Not many upgrades have been done to the facility since then. Had one of their boilers go out. So we're just saying that we'll restore some of the operating expense to allow them to be able to make that restoration and replacement of that boiler that went down a couple of months ago. Department of Revenue, if you'll look over under section 42.8.6, you'll see a restoration of some of the contractual services proposed cut there. We do a very good job in the state of Georgia collecting things that are owed to this state and trying to make the tax burden to all of our citizens fair and equitable. But unfortunately, we do have individuals that try to get by with not paying what they're supposed to be paying. And we found that it's a very efficient way to go about collecting many of these debts owed to the state by using private contractors and those that are able to do data mining and be able to look at data and understand where some shortcomings are. And in this particular cut item, it bothered our subcommittee and several of our subcommittee chairs that have been working with the Department of Revenue for several years. But I would like to tell you that for every dollar we spend here, the average return on that dollar is $12.90 for every dollar we spend using some of these private collection partners. So we made a restoration on some of that contracted funding there. Secretary of State, you'll see under 43.8, under the Access to Medical Cannabis Commission, truing up, actually an addition of some funds there to get that commission established and up and running per House Bill 324 from last year. Student Finance Commission, Section 44, no changes. Section 45, TRS, no changes. Section 46, TCSG, the Technical College System. You'll see one slight adjustment at 46.6.3 under technical education. We had added 3 aviation technician positions last year, but they have staggered their start dates, so there were some savings that we could capture there. Section 47 DOT under intermodal at 47.6.1. You just see where we're using existing funds, utilizing existing funds of $3 million under the intermodal program for some work at the Middle Georgia Regional Airport. They're needing to expand a runway there in pretty quick fashion, have a major economic development partner looking to come in, but they've got to have a little bit more room to land. And also Robins Air Force Base, of course, is pretty much out of room for expansion, and so they're starting to send out or contract some of that work out to off-site locations, and this allows that to happen there. Department of Veterans Services, Section 48, no changes. Workers' Comp, Section 49, no changes. Then Section 50, something that you seldom ever see us do in an amended budget, deals with a bond. And I will just tell you that at 50.1.3 and 50.1.4, we've gotten some information, and we're still trying to sort through what's going on there with that particular project. But initially, 2 years ago, we'd placed a bond in the budget to build a facility, Regional Youth Detention Center in Gwinnett County. There's been some concern and some consternation maybe on getting a site established for that to happen. The bonds were sold. We've already gone into what is called arbitrage, so there's certain spend down targets that have to be hit. It was recommended initially by OPB that the Georgia State Properties Commission vote to redirect that bond to some different projects within DJJ, but we've felt and feel very strongly that a bond that size, that many dollars in a project like that, deserves the scrutiny to come back before this General Assembly to at least be seen as a proposal is done. And I know in working with Chairman F. Strachan, and I know he's been on the phone over the last day or so with his folks in Gwinnett County, hopefully we're kind of breaking the log jam or the layer of ice or whatever it's been, and making some headway on actually getting that center built in Gwinnett County. But we felt that it was important to put it on the table here so that everybody understood we were discussing it, and it was important to this General Assembly to have that discussion. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the walk through the tracking sheet. I'll be glad to attempt to answer any questions anyone may have.
Well, Mr. Chairman, as usual, that was pretty exhaustive, but very thorough.
Yes, I am.
Very thorough. And for you new members, how many bottles did that take there, Mr. Chairman?
That's the first sip I've had.
Wow. I thought you were holding your breath and going all in one breath. Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, just a comment, then a question. As always, thank you to your staff, a very professional job, and to the members of the subcommittees and all the committees of appropriations. Thank you for your work on this bill. And Mr. Chairman, I'm always in awe of your stewardship of the people of this state's hard-earned money, their treasure, Mr. Chairman, as you addressed the needs of this state. Just continued thank you for your work on that issue.
Thank you.
The question I would have, Mr. Chairman, is that we've heard lots of discussion about this budgetary process that we've begun with this amended budget, but is this much different, if you will, in the ebb and flow of information than the process between the House and the Senate and the Governor's Office, the executive branches you've dealt with over the years? So is this pretty much some different, but pretty much in line?
It's pretty much in line. I mean, every administration is going to be a little different and want to handle things a little bit different, and I respect that, and I think we all do. You have teething pains sometimes, and we may have had a few of those, but for the most part, our governor sat in the Senate. The governor sat over there as a member of the Senate and voted on several budgets during that time, so he understands the process and understand that different administrations have different ideas on how things work or how they want to make things work, and I understand that and respect that as well.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I can tell you I appreciate how you're working with everyone and all concerned parties on this budget for your work with the people of this state. Mr. Chairman, did you say you would take a couple of questions?
Yes, sir, I will.
Well, this time the chair would recognize the gentleman from the 17th, Representative Montahan, for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for all your incredible work on this budget. You know, I know the hours and the tolling that y'all have gone over this, so I appreciate that. But I did want to ask a quick question. That was, it had come to my attention late yesterday that the funding for the CSEC, which is a Commercial Sexual Exploitation Center, known as the Receiving Hope in my district, just had held a ribbon cutting, as you had defined earlier, had been removed, but after hearing your description and reviewing your prepared budget on line 31.1.6, it seems that the center is funded appropriately from its opening through the end of the fiscal year. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir, it is. And if once this budget continues to go through the process, if we find out information to the contrary, we'll be sure to adjust for that and make adjustments as necessary.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for all your hard work. I know that you've got a watchful eye over this, and There's nobody I trust more than you on these issues.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Mr. Chairman, to your left, Chairman Estration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for your presentation, Chairman England, and your hard work, the tireless work of your staff to present the budget here today. Isn't it true that the transfer provisions and the general obligation bonds are really a transparency measure to show transfers that are to be made that are recommended, but that this House and you and your committee understand the critical need for an RYDC in Gwinnett County, and we intend to continue to work in the state Senate through the conference process and the budget process to ensure that that need is met?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the gentle lady from the 139th District, Representative Bentley, has a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your work on this budget. But my question is relating to Family Connection. Can you share with me again what exactly was done relating to Family Connection? I kind of missed that.
The restoration of the proposed cuts, there were two different places where that was proposed. One is in DeKalb, and the other one, y'all help me out. But anyway, both of those restorations were made.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the answer. Mr. Chairman, a question from the House District 56, Representative Thomas. Representative Thomas, to your left.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the details of the budget. I just want to be clear, and I do thank you for Family Connection being restored as well, because I know about that agency. But what I want to know is that in the beginning you said that the DAs got together, and in other words, what my concern is whether or not the cuts that were made to the Public Defenders Council, how much was put back in, if there was some change in that particular line item?
They were restored. Those cuts to the public defenders were restored. And what I was saying, the folks on the prosecution side realized that without the defense side being there, they can't move cases. And so Chairman Welch, they came to Chairman Welch and his committee and said, look, we need to help right the ship or balance up. So we're willing to take some cuts and take some hits here in order to help over here, because if we don't have folks standing on the other side of the desk in a courtroom, then we can't move cases at all. So, but those restorations were made.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, that was a great adjustment. Mr. Chairman, believe it or not, you don't have any more questions, so I think either the lunch bell is ringing louder, or you did a very fine job, as I know you did, of explaining your work and the committee's work. So, Mr. Chairman, no further questions.
Understanding that, I figured probably everybody's more hungry than anything. I doubt my ability to explain, and sometimes the stomach overrides the ability to listen. So I will hush and get out of the well. And ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you all. Thank you for your attentiveness last week and the latter part of the week before on being at these hearings, whether you're on the committee or not. Thank you for being a part of this process. I think I've had many of you come up to me and tell me just how much that even though you've been on the committee for years, how much more you see and understand about what many of our agencies do around the state and the dedication of employees that we have in our agencies. And so thank you for being a part of that process, and thank you for allowing us to be a part of this process as well. I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded well. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. We're all indebted to you for your thorough work and your willingness to speak to each one of us on issues that impact the people of Georgia. The chair at this time would recognize Chairman England for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that House Bill 792 do pass by committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The motion's been made that House Bill 792 do pass by committee substitute. Is there a second? Recognize the gentleman from the 33rd, Chairman McCall, for a second.
Mr. Chairman, to reiterate what you have said previously, each and every one of us in this House needs to be appreciative of the Appropriations Committee, especially those of us from rural Georgia, and especially to the House budget staff. So I would gladly second the motion of my seatmate, Chairman England.
Mr. Chairman, I know you've heard a couple of these budgets over your years here, so thank you for that second and your acknowledgement of a job well done. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, at this time, we'll call the question on House Bill 792. All in favor will say aye. All opposed, no. There's no doubt the ayes have it. House Bill 792 passes by committee substitute. Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 116th, Chairman England.
Mr. Chairman,
You got it.
As chairman of the committee of the whole House, you are instructed to report the action of the committee of the whole House to the House.
The chair recognizes Majority Leader Burns.
Mr. Speaker, the committee of the whole House has had under consideration House Bill 792 and has instructed me as its chairman to report the same back to the House with the recommendation that House Bill 792 do pass by committee substitute.
The report of the chairman of the Committee of the Whole House is received. The Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 792 and has reported the same back to the House with a recommendation that House Bill 792 do pass by committee substitute. The Committee of the Whole House is hereby dissolved. Chair recognizes the Minority Leader of the House to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very cognizant that everyone has been patient and sat through a great presentation and that lunch approaches. But I would be remiss if I let this opportunity pass without asking this question. Because in a day where unemployment is at record lows and the economy is doing very well, we are about to vote on an amended budget where we are cutting Georgia's budget. How did we get here? You know, publicly traded companies periodically on a quarterly basis do things they call earnings calls. And they do forecasts about projections about what they're going to make. And on those calls, sometimes they have to report that things didn't come in the way that they expected or anticipate. And that's called an earnings miss. And investors are very, very unhappy when there's an earnings miss because something is amuck in the company when that happens. So the headline coming out of this budget vote, in part, should be that we had a revenue miss for fiscal year 2020. And that should concern each and every member of this House, because revenue misses are a big deal. And the $159 million that we're about to cut in this supplemental budget aren't just dollars and cents. They have names. And they live in each and every one of our districts. And if we haven't heard from those constituents yet, you can bet in the next year we'll hear from them. And the question will be, why did we have to cut when times were so good? And if you're prepared to answer that question and you've got a good explanation, then you can vote green and your conscience can be clear. But if you don't have a good explanation, I would recommend that we as a House have to look at the structural debt and the tab that we are paying for imprudent choices that we have made as a body in recent years. The state economists told us at the beginning of the budget process, the appropriations process, that as a consequence of a tax cut in 2018, we are now $500 million lighter in state revenues as a result. And what we're about to pass on is paying the tab on that tax cut. And in the general appropriations for fiscal year 2021, we'll have to pay a second tab. The choices we are making in this budget and we'll make with 2021's fiscal budget are choices that we're supposed to have to make when times are tough. And when times are tough, belt tightening is expected and everyone anticipates it. But the bad news is that we're having to cut when times are good. And you know what? When times get tough, we'll have to cut again. And one that I was struck with is the testimony in subcommittee hearing after subcommittee hearing heard words like safety net and heard citizens coming and advocacy groups saying, please don't cut, please restore the funding. And the other thing that troubles my heart today is that we have a rainy day fund of nearly $3 billion. Capital that we have set aside. And you know, we call it the rainy day fund, but you know what it's called in statute? It's defined in statute at OCGA 45-12-93? The revenue shortfall reserve. And that's what we got, a revenue shortfall. So when we vote on this budget, we'll have to be able to explain to constituents, how did we get in this situation? And why are we making cuts when we have capital that could be deployed sitting on the side for a rainy day? And there may be members in this body that say, oh, Mr. Leader, it's not raining. But I'm going to tell you something. The roof is leaking. So it is our constitutional duty to pass a budget and to pass on the amended budget. But that is the necessary condition. But is it sufficient? Is this the best budget we can do for Georgia? We can do better. Georgians deserve better. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 792? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 792 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 792. The ayes are 126, the nays are 46, and this House has passed the Supplemental Appropriations Act of fiscal year 20. Let me add, before we start scattering here a little bit, regardless of how you voted and how you feel about the budget, I don't think I've ever been prouder of an appropriations committee in the years that I've been honored to serve in this position. They worked extremely hard. What purpose does Chairman Hawkins rise? State your motion. Chairman Hawkins has moved that House Bill 888 be recommitted to the Special Committee on Quality Health Care. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 888 by Representative Hawkins, the 27th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia, annotated relating to insurance, so as to provide for certain consumer protections against surprise billing.
On the gentleman's motion that House Bill 888 be recommitted to the Special Committee on Quality Health Care, is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Calling a joint session of the House of Representatives and the Senate for the purpose of hearing a message from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, commending and congratulating Tony Thurston, commending R.L. Cousins High School and Hutchinson High School as the first African-American schools in Douglas County, commending the Junior League of Atlanta for serving as a catalyst for Community Challenge in Atlanta, and recognizing February 25th, 2020 as Junior League of Atlanta Day at the state capitol. Recognizing February 20th, 2020 as Alpha Phi Alpha Day at the state capitol. Commending the Gwinnett County Bar Association and recognizing March 10, 2020 as Gwinnett County Bar Association Legislative Day at the state capitol. Honoring the life and memory of Raymond Rick Arza Post. Honoring the life and memory of Asia Charles Daniels. Recognizing February 25th, 2020 as Fort Valley State University Day at the state capitol in recognition of the university's 125th anniversary. Congratulating Miss Cobb County's Outstanding Team 2020, Megan Wright, and commending her for her work as a community service leader and role model. Congratulating Miss Cobb County's 2020, Holly Haynes, and commending her for her work as a community service leader and role model. Recognizing and commending PFLAG, Johns Creek, for its role in uniting families and supporting children throughout the metro Atlanta region. Recognizing February 19, 2020 as State Restaurant Day at the state capitol. Recognizing and commending Samantha Ramirez Herrera. Commending the Vietnamese American community of Georgia and recognizing March 12th, 2020 is Vietnamese American Community Day at the state capitol. Recognizing and commending the Lifelink Foundation. Recognizing and commending Marietta's new theater in the square. Recognizing and commending Hispanic organizations promoting education. Recognizing and commending Yehimi Cabron. Recognizing and commending the Georgia Studio Infrastructure Alliance as a representative for the tens of thousands of hardworking citizens in the state of Georgia's film and television industry. Commending the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival and recognizing its 20th anniversary. Commending and congratulating Sam Smith on winning the 2019 GHSA Class 5A State Track and Field Championship in the 300-meter hurdle event. Commending and congratulating Fred Edward King. Commending Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. Recognizing and commending Bishop Victor L. Powell on the occasion of his 30th pastoral anniversary. Recognizing and commending the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. Honorizing Ed McBrayer for his 29 years of service as Path Foundation and celebrating the 20-year anniversary of the DeKalb County Master Trail Plan. Recognizing and commending Mike Lee for receiving the Nikki T. Randall Servant Leadership Award 2020. Recognizing February 5th, 2020 as Georgia Automatic Merchandising Council Day at the state capitol, recognizing and commending Maddie Louise Middlebrooks Hartsfield, honoring the life and memory of Gwendolyn Robertson Johnson, commending and congratulating Olivia McMillan, Miss Warner Robbins 2020, recognizing and commending Caitlin Tanner, Miss International City Outstanding Teen 2020, recognizing and commending Remily Heidi, Miss Warner Robbins Outstanding Teen 2020, recognizing and commending Homer Gibbons, recognizing and commending the Old Zion Heritage Museum and Reverend Eddie Beckham, recognizing Zion Baptist Church as memorialized in the Old Zion Heritage Museum, commending Adrian Thomas, Austin Road Middle School's 2019-2020 Teacher of the Year, commending Robin Howard, Fairview Elementary School's 2019-2020 Teacher of the Year, congratulating the Vidalia High School's competition cheerleaders for winning the 2019 GHSA 2A State Championship, recognizing March 3rd, 2020 as World Hearing Day at the state capitol, recognizing and commending Sandy Veach on her outstanding service as a paraprofessional caregiver, commending and congratulating Mason Lawrence, congratulating the Marietta High School Blue Devils for winning the 2019 GHSA Class 7A State Football Championship, recognizing and congratulating Mildred Williams on the remarkable occasion of her 90th birthday, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. Chair is looking for Chairman Werkheiser. Join me in wishing a happy birthday to Chairman Bill Werkheiser. If you have signed up for an announcement, make your way to the front of the chamber. All right, listen up. We got just a little bit more business to do. Chair recognizes the chairman of the House Rules Committee, Chairman Smith, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rules will meet tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
Chair recognizes the real Chairman Smith, Chairman Lynn Smith, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The only way I would modify that statement is to say the ageless Lynn Smith is going to make this announcement. So our committee is meeting tomorrow morning in room 606 on one House Bill 93. We passed it last year, but it didn't move any further, so we're going to review it again tomorrow morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Evans for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The DeKalb delegation will meet upon adjournment in CLOB 514. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Watson for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rural Caucus will meet upon adjournment in 201, Department of Ag. We've got Jimmy Lewis with Hometown Health as our speaker. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Lumsden for an announcement.
Lumsden Subcommittee of Public Safety and Homeland Security will be meeting upon adjournment, CLOB 406. We have 4 bills to consider.
Chair recognizes Chairman Beverly for an announcement.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. The Georgia House Democratic Caucus will meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., and breakfast will be served. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Reeves for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Reeves Subcommittee of Judiciary Non-Civil will meet at 2 o'clock in 50 minutes in room 403 of the Capitol. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Harrell, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, Ways and Means subcommittees begin hearing at 2 p.m. this afternoon. We've got both tax expenditure and public policy and finance. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Governmental Affairs Committee, Chairman Blackman, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Governmental Affairs will meet at our regularly scheduled 8 a.m. Time slot tomorrow morning in room 506. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Bennett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Georgia Legislative Black Caucus will meet at 3 o'clock today in room 605. Thank you.
That completes our announcements. The chair recognizes the Majority Caucus Whip, Representative Kelly, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday, February 20th, 2020.
Representative Kelly moves that this House be adjourned until Thursday, February 20th, 2020 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. And the ayes clearly have it. This House will be adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday,